Hello coders, good morning, welcome to Peter's How to Code Well YouTube blah blah blah. Sorry, I've just something's on my foot. I'll start that again. Good morning and welcome to How to Code Well's live stream here on Twitch. We're going to be working through some PHP Stan issues today, and I'm going to be answering some questions if and when they arise. Sorry, I've gone and kicked a load of cables underneath my table, and I just want to double check that they're okay. So yeah, good. Sorry about that. So today we're going to be dealing with PHP Stan. We haven't used it in a while in this project. This project is the FreeCodeCamp invoice application that I'm going to be using or building to then teach object-oriented programming. So we're using PHP, we're not using any frameworks, we're not using any libraries apart from Codeception, and we have something in the region of 105 tests, I believe. All of them are passing except for 2 known issues, so that's fine. But today I just want to focus solely on just having a look at what PHP Stan throws up, see if we can do some refactoring as well. In the code here, well actually first of all let's go to the browser. So I've created this issue, so fix PHP Stan errors and warnings, and in the code what we've done here is we just switched to that branch. We've just created a branch locally, which means that I can now play with this. So let me just rearrange some windows. Hold on just a second. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so PHP Stan. Let's see. Let's dive into the container. Let's just go into reverse search of bash. There we go. So we're now in the Docker container for the web application, and if we do PHP, or actually, sorry, it's in vendor bin. We should see a PHP Stan file here, binary file. So press enter here. Then we can see some of the commands that we need to do. So analyze, we can dump the dependencies and other bits like lists. There's not much to this, to be honest. The magic really is in analyze. For those that don't know, PHP Stan is a super awesome static analysis tool. Okay, so this means that it's going to analyze our code in a very static manner. It's extremely quick, and it will return things such as, it will return PHP warnings and errors. So for example, if the wrong data type is returned, or if the wrong data type is expected and it's not returned, or if the PHP doc is wrong, or if the interfaces aren't correct, or if things just aren't wired up correctly, this is a very good way of doing a quick sanity check. And it's got several levels to it. You can go through various different levels of checking, right? So you can have level 1, and that's extremely simple. I think it starts at level 0, and that's extremely sort of like light. But then it goes all the way up, I believe, to level 7, maybe beyond that, and where it does more of a scrutiny, it checks it far more thoroughly against other things. So we haven't used this in a long time. We did use this in the first couple of streams, but we haven't used it in a while. So I'm not hopeful. I think that there's going to be a fair amount that we're going to find here. So I'm just going to, I'm just going to see if I can run that. So bin PHP Stan. And we're looking for, it's this analyze, so ANA, and then it's LYSE. And if we press enter, just like this, it's going to say we need to specify a path, because this is the path in which we want to analyze. So we want to analyze everything in SRC, everything in there, in here, essentially. We're not too worried and fussed about the tests, because that the tests aren't the integral part to the code. We want to make sure that the actual code, the running pieces of the code, are okay. So we do vendor bin PHP Stan analyze, and we pass in SRC, and it should start doing its magic. And here we can see that we found one error. Let's bring that up a little bit. So the property app invoice manager repository has an unknown class, repository type status as its type. Okay, so these are the kind of errors that we're going to face, and this was running against, I think, level 0. Let's bunch. Sorry, come on, keyboard. Let's change this to another level. So let's do level, and then let's do level equals 1. Only for one error. Level equals 2. 5 errors. Okay, what's happening here? So we've got PHP doc errors. We've got call to method find one on an unknown class. You know, these kind of things are not nice. So like if you're leaving a project, or if you finished a project and you've got a little bit of time to play with, then I do recommend using PHPStan. And I also recommend using PHPStan during the project, which is what we're doing here. We've got the project into a nice place where we can save entities and we can find those entities again. So it's a nice sort of portion of this project that we've completed. Obviously, there's a lot more work to happen, but sometimes it's good to just draw a line in the sand and say, right, I'm going to stop adding features at this point. Feature freeze. Let's just see if we can tidy up what we've already got. That means that the next set of features that we add will be adding to code that is already nice and clean, and will be far more readable and usable in the future. So you might think, well, hang on a minute, PHP doc tags aren't really important, you know, but we spend more time reading code than we do writing code. So if I'm reading this and I'm going, well, you know, what is table? What does that mean? Is that the table name? You know, what does that mean? So putting in these little quick wins will certainly help. We've gone to level 2. Let's jump this straight up to level 5. And we've got 9 errors here. So now we're digging inside the actual parameters. So set ID expects an int or null, but the string has given. So this is actually now checking the what we can supply and what we're returning back from these methods. Okay, so that was level 5. Let's go all the way up to 7. And we have 12 errors, so yeah, we are in double figures. So again, this goes into a little bit more scrutiny. So here we've got argument of invalid type array false supplied for a for each. Only iterables are supported, so that's going to be an interesting one to fix. Can we go any higher? I'm not too sure. Let's go up to 9. No, let's go up to 8. No, okay, not on this version. That's fine. So what we're going to do is, I mean, I've worked on projects where there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of errors. Okay, this is where like you're working on projects that have been around for a long time. They're legacy, and they were back in the PHP sort of 5 days and before. And, you know, this isn't anyone's particular fault. This is just, you know, projects evolve over time. But, you know, as developers, we want to be building code. And not always we want to just sort of, like I said, put a pause on the project. Sometimes we're not even allowed to, you know, depending on constraints of the work that you're doing. But this is what we're going to do today. And this is more of a relaxed, chilled stream because I'm not actually adding any features. I'm fixing it. And I should say that because we've got over 100 or so unit tests, then this means that the changes that we do here, yes, they're very deep in the code, and yes, they're very sort of like broad reaching, but we've got tests to back ourselves up. So I wouldn't fiddle around with anything like this unless you have something that is already tested, something that is already telling you that you can actually do this. Because you might fiddle around with this might throw up a red herring, okay, and you might actually be wanting to use some sort of mixed data type for some reason, and that actually should throw up a warning sign that the code needs to be changed, restructured, and refactored. That is a code smell, but PHPStan will just say this is expected string, you're passing an int, or it's returning an int, or what have you. And so you go and change that without actually knowing how that code is actually being used. And because you might not have a test to test that code, you might be making it acceptable for PHPStan, but you might be breaking the application. So only do this when you have tests. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock this all the way back to level 0. Do they have a level 0? Yes. Okay, and we're going to go basically walk the ladder. So we'll do level 1 or level 0, then level 1, then level 2, all the way up to 7 if we have a chance. And we'll slowly fix these issues one by one. And look, if you jump on the chat and want to ask a question or whatever, then please do so. Don't worry about interrupting. That's no problem. This is just a nice chilled stream. There's not going to be any new features coming into this project in this stream, so don't worry about that. Okay, so the first issue here is we have a manager, invoice manager, PHP, line 16. This is a lovely thing about PHP Stan. Not only does it tell you what's wrong with it, it tells you where it's wrong. Okay, so line 16, repository has an unknown class, app status. Okay, so let's go and take a look at that. So this is where was that? Let's have a look. It is in invoice manager, line 16. Yes. So even my IDE knows that there's an issue here. So this needs to be, hang on a minute. Is that right? Undefined class repository. Undefined repository has an unknown status as its type. So, okay. So that needs to be, let's remove that. Status repository. Okay. That needs to go in there. This needs to be status. I'm a bit confused as to why we're putting in the status repository in here, but we'll have a little see. Status. Okay, so what's going on here? We're passing in instantiating the connection. I remember what we were doing here. We haven't actually dealt with these routines, the actual invoice routines themselves. So what this needs to be is the instead of the connection, obviously, it needs to be the invoice repository. So okay, so we can't actually fix that yet. What I'm going to do, how do I get around this? Because this is going to throw an error and all sorts. I guess for this, what I could do is just create so in repository here. Yep. So this is what I was mentioning the other day. This needs to be altered to be renamed this to be status, invoice repository. Like so. Okay, so that's invoice repository. We'll make sure that's changed. Yep. So we have all the bits and pieces on here. And then in the actual invoice manager itself, which is this one here, this needs to be invoice, not status. So this needs to be invoice. We could just call it repository because there's only going to be one. So we can get rid of that. And what we can do is we can inject the repository into here. So this now becomes the repository that we've injected. Okay, so that's now, that's now invoice repository. It's not status repository. Okay, so there's no need for that anymore. And there's no need for the connection anymore. Of course, we are going to break this. So there are some things that we do need to play with in order to get these things working, which is fine, you know, because and this is obviously not a customer manager anymore. This is an invoice manager. And there we go. Okay, so this is an example of, yeah, I've gone and fixed this, but now I've actually gone and made another issue for myself because we've removed the instantiation, the dependency injection of connect, right? So that's gone. But we need connect down here because we need to make a connection and all this stuff, whereas this should actually be in the repository like the other ones were doing. So we are going to have to fiddle with this in order to get the actual tests to work a little bit. Okay, that's no problem. That's okay. That's no problem. I'm a bit annoyed that this has happened on the first run, but you know, this is the way it goes, isn't it? This is the way it goes. So, okay, what should we do here? We could, if we wanted to, run this, and this will pass, but then that will give us a red herring because we've actually broken the code. So let's go and fix the code in the test, I believe, in tests. Integration in the we don't actually have an integration test for the invoice, which is a shame. Okay, so let's build one then. Let's build one. Let's go. Well, actually, there's some tests, isn't there, in here? I think in the acceptance in invoice. So when we have insert with one, we can. Yeah, we're running this whole status manager save thing. And so that's going to break. Okay, I'm just going to tidy that up because that looks a bit awful. If I can, did that work? Nope. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm going to just put these over there. There we go. That's better. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to fix the save routine. Because the save routine is going to rely upon the repository to do the saving. So, okay, what we could do then is go into the... Well, I'll tell you what, first thing we'll do, right, we'll run a test to have our failing test. That would work, wouldn't it? Vendor bin codesep, yeah, run, and we'll just run through them. So there will be a broken test, or at least two. Okay, so yeah, we've got a couple. We've got 3 errors. So the errors are this one here. Invoice construct must be an instance of invoice repository, but connection is given. So here we go. This is the problem. So we need to do repository equals new invoice repo. I wish that would cool. Okay, where was I? It was not that one, this one. Okay, so we have the repository and we pass that in, but we also pass the connection into the repository. That's the way the cookie crumbles in this application. So this needs to have a public function construct, passing in the construct. Sorry, not the connection. Which is connection, and we do this is equal to connection, passing that in as a private property. Awesome. Okay, well, that's looking good. And then what we do is we have a save routine, which is in... we could just we could just for the sake of getting this working, use this one here. Okay, so this is going to be a invoice. It's going to return an invoice, so that needs to be sorted. Okay, so then what we do is we can change the table name. And in fact, this is doing exactly the same thing, really, as what the manager used to do. But of course, we're not actually using the manager anymore to do the mechanics. The mechanics are done in the repository. So we can copy all of that, go into here, and just paste that in. That's looking good. And then back on the manager, what we do is we do the similar thing to what status is doing, where we just save it and return it. So in the invoice repo here, we just do, not the invoice repo, the invoice manager, beg your pardon. We do this, boom. Now this is making me think, you know, this could actually be done in a base class somewhere, because it's not actually any different from any of the other managers. Really, obviously the data types are changing, but we'll work on that. We'll work on that in the future. First of all, I just want to make sure that this is actually saving. So the test that we were looking at was this one here, which I can just pull out from here. So this is DB invoice test. Let's not run all of them because we'll just get noise. And that's worked. Excellent. Okay. So let's see. Can I spin it back and just run all the invoices? Can I just do, or I could just do all the DBs. That'll be good. Okay. So there's 2 errors. So let's scroll up here. So the first one is this construct issue. I'm guessing it's because with the managers and stuff, what I'm going to do, because that's getting a little bit weighty here, let's copy all of this stuff, put it in a protected method, and then call that. So let's do get connection, or get manager, I should call it. Of course, this is a function. I'll just paste all of that in, and I'm just going to tidy up that code. So this will now return, the manager. So that's the invoice manager that gets returned here. Okay, let's just put in some comments. Wonderful. Okay, good. Happy with this. So let's grab the manager from that, so there's no need for this anymore, and there's no need for that anymore. We can just do this, get manager, and that will be the same for the other ones as well. So this one here needs to change. Manager is that, and then this one is correct. And then, do we have another one? Yes, we do. This is status. This is strange. Why is this status? Oh, I'm adding a status to the... Okay, that makes sense. So I'm saving the status. All right, fine. Okay, I dig that. So let's grab that in here. And then let's see if we can run this and see what happens. There we go. All the tests are working. Just for my own sanity, let's run all of them together. Now, there is 2 known errors. There are 2 known errors. So 2 is our lucky number. I think that was the 2 that we just saw. 2 failures. That's correct. Yes. These are the not found jobbies. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, it would be best to do all of this when everything is nice and green, but for now, let's just continue on with this. So that's fixed. That's wired up. Let's take a look at running PHP Stan again, and we have no errors on level 0. Okay, that's cool. So this is progressed. This is good. Level 1, no errors. Level 2, 3 errors. Okay, so we have 3 errors on level 2. Okay, so the first set of errors are within DB query. PHP doc is invalid. Table has an unexpected token. These are pretty straightforward to fix because we're saying that the actual doc block itself is not correct. Just take a slurp of the tea. Tea. The first cup of the tea always tastes the best, I find. So, yeah, let's have a look at this. This is in, where are we? This is in Query Builder, isn't it? So let's do, let's load that up. It is Query Builder, and it's on line 76. Line 76 is somewhere between line 75, I guess. Seriously? Okay, yeah. Can you see that? It doesn't have anything on both the doc block here as well as in there. So this really is a string, to be honest. This is a string. And that's a string like that. Okay, cool. Let's have a look, see if there's any others. Yes, there is. String needs to be in here. String needs to be there. Let's have another little nosy. That's good. Find by. That's good. This seems to be okay. Yep. That's good. And this appears, whoops, to be good too. Okay, good. Let's run that again and see what's going on. Level 2. 1 error. Okay, so that's cool. I'm going to just quickly run the unit tests again, all of them. Remember, there's 2 known issues. Looking good, looking good. Okay, so let's go back to level 2. So we have 1 error here. Okay, so what's going on here? So we have, again, another doc thing. PHP doc tag return at return is a mixed type, but not subtype of native type, which it should be. Okay. So this is in here. So let's load that file up. Whoops. No. There we go. Okay, this is in line 30 now. Right to the top, up to the top here. Here we go. So that return type is mixed, but we're actually returning status. So this should be null or status, like that. Okay. Okay, so let's run this test and see if PHPStan thinks that's fixed. It is. Excellent. So then we run the codeception tests again. 2 errors, and that's fine. Okay, so let's knock this up to level 3. No errors. Knock this up to level 4. 1 error. Okay, what's showing on here? Strict comparison using triple equals between false and true will always evaluate to false. Okay, that's never good. So let's load that file up. That's DB connection. Oops, connection. There we go. So this is on line 42. Line 42 is here. So if this is false instance of that, then we okay, I see. So if that is false, that's what we're trying to do. So could we do that instead? Let's see if we can, if that isn't, yeah, that should work. Let's Let's run that again. I mean, this change is quite a humongous change, right? This is changing the whole thing. This is why you need to go back and run these tests, right? Because if I was to change this and go, oh, you know, this is actually working, then, you know, because PHPStan says it's working, I could have just blown a hole straight into the thing. Just going to check these tests. So this was fine. This is our not page found issue here, and then we have a 404 page issue here as well. That's good. So everything passed as expected. But just imagine like just someone looking at this and going, I don't understand that, so I'm just going to not do that, right? So you've just completely changed the whole mechanics of how this works. So it's always good to have your tests. Test, and test more. So we're going to hit save on that one. Okay, so let's run this again. That should pass. Let's go up to knock it up to 5. 2 errors found. Okay, let's take a look at that. So we have parameter 1 ID of method abstract set ID expects an int or null, but a string has been given. What? That doesn't sound good. Same with this one. What on earth was I smoking when I did that? Okay, so customer repository. Let's copy that. This is line number 57. Yeah, we'll start with the first one. 57. That's not 57. This is 57 up here. Okay, so set ID, last ID. So we're actually passing in, oh, that's crazy. So that is actually returning a string. That's nuts. I thought that would return an ID. That's my mistake. So, okay. We could cast this to an int, but we need to make sure that that is actually the thing that is being returned. Again, we have our tests, and we could test this using one of these things. If we did, I mean, even the invoice tests, I think we can check that the IDs are actually the right thing based on what we've saved. So we are okay to change that because we've got a test to back that up. So same with line 114 of the status repo. Scroll 14, which is here. That needs to be changed. And now this is really sort of highlighting the fact that I've changed one piece of code in 2 files, right? The same piece of this needs to be refactored totally. This whole thing, only this needs to be called once, right? So this needs to be altered at some point. So let's just run that and see if that has passed, which it has. Awesome. Let's now run these tests again. So they were the 2 errors that we were aware about. That's fine. So that's worked. But again, this is quite a brutal change, you know, changing the casting, the data type from a string to an int. That's quite a brutal change. So, okay, we are now on level 5. Are we not? Yes, we are on level 5. So let's bump this right up to level 6. We have 2 errors. Okay, so we have the first one being argument of an invalid type array false supplied for each only iterables are supplied. Not too sure yet what that's hinting to, but let's just take a look. So this is in customer repository, line 76 here. Okay, so for each rows as row, there's something going on here. So argument of invalid type array or false supplied. So this fetch all, I'm presuming, will return. Let's have a look at the code here. Will return an array, or am I correct in thinking that it's going to return false? Does it say? Array PDO fetch all returns an array containing all of the remaining rows in the result set. The array represents each row as either an array of column values or an object with properties corresponding to each column name. Using this method to fetch large result sets will result in heavy demand on the system. sure. Okay. And then it talks about, so no, this appears to be returning an array. Yeah. Okay, I would have thought that what PHPStan is talking about here is that we're either returning an array or false, right? And we're trying to loop through false, and that's never good. Which would mean, if that is the case, that we need to do if is array rows, and then we do the loop. And then one can argue, well, you know, if it isn't an array, then we should be throwing an exception. Let's just run this again. So that's 2 errors. Let's just see if that has actually fixed it. That has actually fixed it. So this is actually returning false as well. PDO statement. Okay. Okay. Well, this is good anyway. To check that. Next one then is status repository on 61. 61 is invalid. Type array supplied for only iterable supported. What's that? Oh, hang on a minute. Let's just run this again. This is on a different file, isn't it? This is on status. Yep, status repo. I think it's the same thing, which again highlights to me that this is a code smell and needs to be refactored. If is array rows, because there's a lot of code duplication here. A lot of code duplication, which I will be tackling. At some point. I just, you know, getting it working is my main priority right now. I think if you start focusing on refactoring too early, or too much, I shouldn't say too early, you should refactor early, sure. But if you do it too much and you over abstract, then you get to a problem. So what I would like to get to is a point where in this project where the database is sorted, the front end is sorted, and we can, or once the database is sorted, for instance, we then take a couple of streams to then actually tidy the code up, make it a little bit more leaner, make it a little bit more streamlined. But before any of that happens, I want PHPStan to be fully okay, and I want all the acceptance tests all the tests to run, because then that becomes your benchmark. That's where you are with that. Okay, so let's run that again. I think that's passed. Okay, let's go up to 7 here. And we've got one final error, which is the abstract ID int does not accept int or null. So there's a problem there with probably the doc block. So abstract entity. Where are we with the abstract entity? Where does that live? I'll just use the PHP command O abstract. So I don't think you can see this in the stream because this is a pop out. On PHPStorm, press command and O. What that does is it loads up a pop-up where you can actually type class names or anything you want, and it will find you the file, which means that you don't have to go through this huge nested file system. So this is line 37, so we can scroll down here. This is the thing. What's going on here? So, does not accept int or null. Does not accept int or null. Really? Does not accept int or null. It actually accepts null or int, to be honest. That's weird. Why? That seems to be okay to me. Unless Property. Oh, okay. It's the property. It's the property. Here we go. It's the property. It's not the method. You need to read it. You need to read it, Pete. This is the property we're dealing with, not the method. Int or null. Okay, so let's run this. And it's passed. So it's now passed, and we don't have a level 8. So PHPStan is now fully working, fully happy. And I want to just run all the tests again. There's 2 known issues, remember, 2 known issues. That's fine. And yeah, that is looking good. That is looking good. I'm really happy with that. 107 tests, 210 assertions. There could be far more than that, and we know that there's 2 failures because that's on the view, the not found issues here. Which is fine. We haven't tackled the view in a very long time, so that's okay. I think there was a problem with Apache when I was playing with that, so I'll need to refresh my memory when we get to that. But it's good to have those tests that are failing, because it kind of highlights to me that that just the level of the stability of this. It's not stable yet, of course. Whoops. So I just knocked the iMac with my cup of tea. That's never good. So what I'll do is we've made an awful lot of change. And one thing I should say, and this is turning into a bit of a rant now, and I do apologize, but this one thing I should say is some of the projects that I've been working on, where I've been using PHPStan a lot to find out where the smelly parts of the legacy code is. When we get like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of errors, how do you deal with that? How do you manage that? Well, you go through the levels like I showed you. So you start with level 1, you start with level 2, and hopefully what happens is level 1 would be normally hopefully lighter than level 2. It's not always the case. Sometimes there's more in level 1 than there is in level 2. But what you would do is first you would analyze it. You would see the pain points. You would go, right, let's walk this ladder and find where all these find these issues. Right, you would get an issue count, a number that comes back. There is 2 errors. There are 5 errors. There are 10 errors. There are 1,000 errors. Whatever, at each of these levels. You then create a bug for each one. Okay, you then in GitHub or wherever you are, you then create a bug for each and every single level. Not each bug, right? Not each issue that's been found, but for every level. And then what you do is you say, right, today I'm going to focus on level 1. Tomorrow I'm going to focus on level 2, and so on and so forth. Don't just, if you've got huge amounts of these things, don't just try and knock them all out in one go, because that isn't well. You're going to risk breaking a lot of stuff. This was okay because we only had I think it was 12 when we started, so this is all right. But when you've got hundreds and hundreds, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. And you saw the changes that I had made here. They were quite risky changes. Some of them were, especially around the connections, changing the data types and so forth. You want to make sure that you have tests as well. So you want to make the judgment call. PHPStan has found all of these errors in these particular places. These particular places don't have enough code coverage. The thing that I would do in that case is I would create the code coverage first, and then I would use PHPStan to then fix those things. Because then you've got something to back you up. You don't want to just put in a fix and assume that it's going to work. PHPStan is not going to tell you that you have a bug in your system. PHPStan will tell you that through the static analysis, it's found an issue with PHP and the way you are using PHP. It doesn't check your acceptance. It doesn't check your unit tests. It doesn't check the functionality of your application. So you could be changing the functionality of your application without really knowing it, and you're just fixing PHPStan issues that have arisen. So you really need to take a judgment call. I know projects that have like They're acceptable up to like level 3, and then afterwards it's a bag of spanners. But we can't do anything above level 3 because we don't have enough tests and enough confidence yet to get past that. But one thing as well, when we were diving into the SRC, you could actually go straight down to file level. So if you are adding a new file to a code base that is already in existence, you could literally say, okay, well, I want to only test DB connection, and I don't want to, because I've made a change there, and I don't want to. I don't want to test anything else. This is the test that I've made. So that's so you can do it that granularly. You can go right to the file. Also, with PHPStan is you can actually put in your own configuration. So if there are errors that it's throwing up and you don't want them to be errors for any kind of reason, then you can do that, and you can also put in exception warnings as well, and other bits and pieces, some clever stuff with the config too. I won't be showing you that in this stream, but it's certainly it's a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool, and if you keep using it, if you keep saying at this point of this project I'm going to be using PHPStan, it becomes easier because now I know that everything is passing. So we're now going to be working on code that is cleaner than it was before. Whereas if I was to leave running PHPStan to the very end of this project, then we would have far more issues, and more riskier issues perhaps, because the code would have grown. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come out of the container. I've moved my microphone, I do apologize. So we're in git branch, and if we did git status, you can see all of the files that I have changed. There's quite a few here. It's quite a lot. And one thing I should definitely say is when you're doing this stuff, do not do this stuff whilst you're adding features. Or when you're wanting to refactor something else. This should be really its own little thing. This is why today has been dedicated to a PHPStan day. The only extra feature really I added, well, it wasn't really a feature. We wired up the connection to the invoice repository. We didn't actually add any features. There wasn't any features that we added. We just changed the wiring to make this work. But if you had a feature request come through, don't use that as an opportunity to look back over the legacy code and see if you can tidy that up, because you should be working singly on that feature request. And if you can, isolate that feature request and run PHPStan against that, not against the old code. Okay, that should become its own project. And I know I sound a bit ranty here, but I've just had experience with projects where they're huge, and you run these PHPStan issues, and there's loads and loads of errors, but they're touching pieces of code that you're not even aware of. And some don't have tests, and some don't have documentation, and you're like, well, do I, don't I? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because you see what's happening here. All of these changes now, I can commit in a single branch and push this up as a single pull request, right? Which means that if I wanted, I could revert all of these changes in one hit. They're not muddled in between a new feature. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to do git add, and we're just going to do src add, and I think we changed not only src, but we also changed the test as well. So let's just run git status again just to make sure that that is correct, which it is. So now I can do git commit m fixing PHPStan issues. Okay, and then what we do is we do a hub pull hyphen request, -p. And what am I going to do? I'm going to create a new line in here, and this fixes or closes, fixes, let's do fixes, or resolves if you want. It was bug 72 that we were working from. Okay, let's come out of Vim, bye-bye. That should now push that up as a pull request, which it does, which means that I can go into the, yep, done, browser here, into the pull requests. We can click on that, that's what I've just pushed up. Merge that in, confirm the merge, delete that branch, go back into the issues here. Okay, so we're back down to 7, which is awesome. And then what we can do is I go back into the code here, and then just tidy up my local thing. So let's just do a git checkout of master, do a git pull, that's cool, and then do a git branch, and then do a git branch -d because we want to delete that branch 72 PHP Stan. Whoops, sorry, PHP with a can't spell PHP this morning. Okay, so what I can do just for sanity's sake is let's just go back into the container here. We're on the master branch, and then let's just analyze the whole thing again, just for sanity's sake. Whoops, that needs to be src. And also we're going to run the codeception. Wonderful. Okay, so that's gone through. Excellent. Okay, well that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the progress there. What's happened there? That's really, really awesome. We've managed to fix all of those PHP Stan issues today and commit them back. No additional features today for this project. I just wanted to clean up the project as it stood. You know, if it gets too big and I don't do this, then you know it's going to be more of a pain later on. This kind of work really shouldn't take long to do if you do it in iterations and small things like this. Excellent. One thing I'm going to mention, if we go to the browser here, is these streams are archived on YouTube and put onto the learnobjectorientatedphp.com website. Once the course has been created, I will embed it here on this homepage. So this is learnobjectorientatedphp.com. I'll put this in the chat stream here if anybody is interested. So yeah, that went through. So the homepage will change to the actual embedded course, the course which I'm going to be doing for FreeCodeCamp. The course will cover things like OOP fundamentals, visibility scopes, classes and objects, inheritance, data types, and design patterns. We're building an invoice application. It's using PHP and MySQL. It's using a Docker environment. We're playing with a couple of TDD stuff. And of course, it's available on GitHub, and you're watching it live here on Twitch. No frameworks or libraries are used except for testing frameworks as well, except for testing libraries, I should say. And what you can do is if you click on this button here, live coding the course, you can actually see these streams. So you can see them all from stream 1, and I've got them all going up to, I think, 35. So when this goes out, there'll be another one through here. So you can actually click through each one of these and see how this course has been developed. And of course, if you're watching this on this website, then it's a bit of a live stream inception here. But do let me know. Give me a shout out on Twitter, which is @HowToCodeWell. This website, as well as the streams, are sponsored by Hostinger. Hostinger is a fantastic, affordable, and reliable web hosting platform. I've used them in the past to host some projects it's hosting this website here. This live website is running on Hostinger. At the moment, they've got a fantastic deal on. It's 82% off shared web hosting and a free domain, or 77% off VPS hosting, which is super, super cool. Plus, furthermore, if you use the discount code Peter Fisher at checkout, you get a further 15% off, which is pretty awesome. So you can either click the button here down where it says get the deal here, where you can click on the banners and so forth, or in the show notes below. Another thing I'm just going to mention briefly is that we have, go back to the code here, we've got on the podcast today, which is howtocodewell.fm, we have Matt Brunt talking. He is a web developer and a speaker and a mentor. And we talk about how public speaking can improve a web developer's career, and how he got into speaking in his speaking style, as well as his background in his university. He had a sandwich course, which was awesome, which meant that he was able to work in the web development industry whilst being technically still at university, which was fantastic. So we were talking about that as well. That's going to be later on today on the howtocodewell.fm website and podcast. So that's available on Spotify, iTunes, and all the other great places where you might find podcasts. So look up How to Code Well there. But anyway, I'm going to dive off. There is not going to be a stream next week. Next week, I'm going to take a bit of time off, a bit of downtime. We've got this project into a nice groove at the moment, and I think it's nice and stable. I'm going to leave it for a week. I'm going to just take some time off of streaming. The next stream will be in a few weeks' time. It'll be a Sunday stream, but I'll put an event together on Twitch so you can see that. But for now, though, thanks for watching. Happy coding, everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.